I think we as suppliers overuse the term savings. I have yet to meet a customer that lowered their maintenance and repairs expenses year over year.
Parts are becoming obsolete pretty much as soon as the warranty runs out, especially for appliances. We can't get the parts that we need to repair them, so why are we even looking at repair anymore? But then we're struggling with this replace policy and our ESG requirements.
Imagine if they made light bulbs that 100 years ago that could last 100 plus years. Why can't they make like a light bulb now that lasts 1,000 years, right? That's the question. Instead, it lasts 100 days.
When you're getting the cheapest product, say, I'm just going to throw a name out there, Frigidaire, and then you're buying the lowest quality of Frigidaire, and then you're putting it in there and expecting it to last 6 years, and it breaks down a year in as soon as the warranty runs out. I almost think it's by design, because they know the people that are buying the bulk of this stuff.
Since we have you on a screen here, Jared, why don't you introduce yourself briefly to the team and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Jared Bottleson. I'm the National Facilities Manager for Peak Made Real Estate. We manage about 100 properties across the U.S. and Canada. Our company, I should say, started out about 15 years ago, and our niche was student housing. And we're slowly growing into the multifamily market. We've probably got about 20% of our current portfolio is multifamily. And I was lucky enough to be introduced to Adrian through our new president, Jonathan Tucker, goes by JT, where we connected and we were just discussing how we're going to move our facilities program, the direction that we're going to be going, and tried to bounce some ideas off of Adrian. And so Adrian was nice enough to invite me to this group, and hopefully I can be not only helpful for you all if you have any questions about what we do or just our sector and how it relates to our topics that we're probably going to be, covering. But, if there's any of the other ideas or anything like that you want to bounce off me, I'm open to that. So.
Since I have you here introducing yourself, I'm going to ask, where do you see the biggest challenges when it comes to procurement in general and also opportunities for an operator like you?
Sure. So to tell you a little bit more about Peak is we're a third-party management group. And so historically, we've always allowed our teams to make purchasing decisions at the site level. And we haven't had a lot of oversight with spend. We don't really, historically, we haven't had reporting on spend with our national vendors versus vendors outside of our programs. And so we're currently looking at a GPO exercise right now. We're going through that process of analyzing the data and understanding what that benefit could mean to Peak. That would be, I think, especially for this topic, I think that we're going to cover today, that would be one of the challenges that we have is how do we ensure that our teams are driving the spend to our national vendors and our partners, because we are a third-party management group and because they make those decisions on the site level. We're trying to evaluate and understand how we can have some oversight of that and also coach and manage that purchasing that they're doing. To be able to capture some of those things like discounts and rebates and things of that nature.
So from what you've been doing so far, I understand that you're basically like putting some things in place, but from what you've been doing, what were the most effective ways of partnering with like a national vendor? And if you could give us some details, right? Was it like a off the catalog discount? Was it rebates? Was it fast delivery? What was it? Where do you see the most value in a national relationship partnership?
Well, one of the things that we have done is because we are a student, I should say primarily student property management company, we focus a lot on our turn effort and that time of year when we're turning the majority of our units on site. And so we typically take a look at our top 100 SKUs or top 150 SKUs with our vendors each year. And then we request contract pricing for those items. And so what we do is we either create a rapid order form or we provide our teams with what those SKUs are, and we try to drive purchasing that way. We've also set up multiple accounts with each of our vendors. So all of our properties have a MRO account, and then they have a CapEx account. I'll use HD as an example. So what we do is we request that those rapid order forms are utilized through that CapEx account or that renovations account so that it frees up the budget on the MRO side if they have additional purchases that they need, but then it's also giving them that opportunity to purchase those contracted priced items. We used to go through the process of having each of our MRO providers give us a rapid order form for certain category items. So things like blinds that we're purchasing a lot of each year during that time period, we would submit, here are all the sizes that we need. We want contracted price blinds for all of these different sizes. Could be aluminum, could be vinyl, could be full wood. And then they would give us those and we would pump that out to the team. And we were getting granular on the product, which I don't know had a lot of impact. I think what we found was more impactful was finding those top 150 SKUs that everybody is using and getting all of those items contracted priced. It could be toilet seats, it could be consumable products, cleaning products, things like that. And so we kind of expanded on that and moved away from trying to have each vendor bid on that product and have each vendor tell us, well, what are we buying from you? Because that's obviously what our needs are, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're going to use this vendor for blinds and we're going to use this vendor for, I don't know, light bulbs or whatever it might be. We've then said, teams, go ahead and use whatever vendor you want based on the product that you need so that we're not pigeonholing what they can purchase. And then that's capturing more products, I think. And so that's something that we've done that's been helpful in that regard to build those relationships and to drive a little bit more of that spend towards contracted priced items.
One question that comes to mind here, the suppliers are changing the inventory fairly, often, I will say. So that 150 item list today is gonna be different a month from now. Some of those items won't exist, like the SKUs, right? So how does that work for your company? Like, do you get replacements for those parts? How does it go? Because if you, let's say, your favorite toilet seat goes away, like that particular toilet seat, obviously they have 50 other kinds of toilet seats, but how does that go in a real world?
Yeah, so we ask them to provide us with the next best product or that best match product to provide us with what that SKU would be. I think it brings up a whole nother topic of conversation when you've got 100 different properties and you're trying to match what's there currently. You don't want a mismatch of toilet seats or you don't want a mismatch of shower heads or whatever, right? Everybody that moves in should have the same finishes in their apartment. And so we also understand that each property is going to have specific needs when it comes to purchasing. So we're very flexible about that. And what we'll do is if we know that out of our top 150 SKUs, there was 3 toilet seats that popped up, we would ask them to, if any of those go away, then you're filling us in and providing us with that new SKU, the comparison of the 2 products, giving that to our team so that they can kind of properly vet that out to make sure it fits their need before they make that purchase.
And a last question for you, Jared, before I move to other guests here. Do you have make-ready services integrated in your purchasing, uh, in your procurement system, like something automated, like not the old make-ready board on a wall and the service manager calls in wherever they want to call in? Is there any automation in the process?
Are you talking about like kitting for turning the unit. So
I,
like,
I, I wasn't thinking about kidding, but I'm glad you're bringing it up. This could be it too, but it could be actually actual services, right? Painting, cleaning, carpet replacement. Is there any automation in the process where you just call on an as needed basis, a number of vendors and they just provide those services?
I think the only time that it's fairly automated is if we have a turnkey vendor that's going to do all services within the unit. Then we don't schedule, we don't individually schedule those things. And I don't know if I understood your question 100% or what we're trying to accomplish with that. But as far as automation goes, when we have a unit that needs to be turned, as far as the services that occur in that unit, those services are I guess chosen or scheduled based on the actual need within the unit. We may have certain units that don't need a full paint. They may need a touch paint. And so our team goes and inspects that unit and then qualifies it. If, hey, this is a full paint, we need to let the vendor know this is a full paint, or this is a partial or carpet services needed, or it's not needed. So as far as an automation, not really. We're looking at we're looking at Easy Turn, we're looking at Turnable. There's a couple other solutions out there that we're piloting right now when it comes to managing a turn board and automating that process and the communication with the vendor to know when that resident's moving out, when they can get access to it, how to schedule that. But currently right now, it's a very, very manual process for our teams to get those scheduled based on the actual need of the unit.
Yeah, so that was part of what I was referring to. The other part was that every management company typically uses like, ERD Marketplace or Uptech if you're on RealPage or, whatever other platforms. And I was wondering if you have, a way just by electronically placing make-ready type orders, like replacing a carpet, replacing vinyl, or ordering paint, automated, other than just like, the old way of calling a vendor.
No, but we're definitely exploring those options, and I'd love to hear more if anyone's used those or if you have any recommendations, because we would love to try to take that human error out of things and get things more automated.
So we actually do today, and we have a very large national MRO vendor represented. We actually have a turnkey solution here present that not only provides the labor, but they also provide the technology. So the purpose of building this group is to basically connect, one of the purposes, right? Connect solutions with with challenges. And that's why I wanted to take a little more time with you so we could kind of open it up. And then I'm gonna go from you, I'm gonna go to Bert. And Bert, I'm sure that you paid attention to the entire conversation. My question to you here is, how does a company like you provide the value to someone like Jared when it comes to obviously a national type of deal with discounts and everything, but then also property specifics?
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. I mean, at the end of the day, there's been a lot of changes in this industry, but the thing that doesn't change is that there's very few things from what I provide to your communities than, right-sized inventory just in time. So getting you the products you need exactly when you need it. So, we take a little bit of a different approach than some of our competitors, and it's just kind of operational strategic decisions in our logistics and how we fill our branches. It's probably more expensive for us just because we have essentially all the same inventory in all of our branches. So, Jared, you were talking about the turn season. So one of the things that, in my experience and coming from, being a regional property manager before joining Chadwell Supply, just didn't want to deal with residents anymore. So feel for you guys. So
you kind of rubbing it right in our face right now. If we're operators, I see what you're doing out there.
So it's nearly impossible to be able to predict what on an MRO side, like your daily orders, what you're going to need tomorrow that you're ordering today. The student turn world, for me, I find to be far easier because you're telling us months in advance what you're going to need, and it's relatively consistent year over year because it's you're turning basically the entire community, short of maybe a couple holdover units that stick around, but it's really communication at that point. And then as a company, I have to prioritize your needs along with all of our other partners in the marketplace. So having the flexibility to do the things that you're talking about, like I love that you said your top items and contracting in, because that drives so much of the we say savings, but I think we as suppliers overuse the term savings. I have yet to meet a customer that lowered their maintenance and repairs expenses year over year. So really, it's expanding your ability to buy based on standardizing key items, and that's where we come in and have good partners. Me as well as my competitors sharing data with you. You mentioned a GPO. GPOs can be valuable tools, just in a sense that it centralizes the communication about where everything's coming from multiple suppliers that you're partnered with. The ability. I know years ago, when I was on your side of the business, I could really kind of lean in on one supplier and get my needs mostly handled. But due to regionality and certain suppliers have strengths in some regions over others, it makes the centralization of your supplies a little bit more difficult. So having the flexibility that, hey, I'm going to use this supplier where they're strong, but in this region, this other supplier is doing a great thing. So I love the fact that you're empowering your teams to make decisions based on given choices that you decide at a corporate level that, hey, these are our partners, go use them where it makes sense. And there's a lot of value in that. The one thing I would encourage, I don't know how historically I found a lot of our partners, they look at their top 150 based on the quantities purchased. And I really look at that by the dollar spent. What you're spending, if I can apply the deepest discounts to what you're spending the most money on, not necessarily the quantity you're buying. So, if I'm going to give you a 20% discount, you'd rather have that on a $10 item instead of a $1 item, or a $1,000 item instead of a $100 item. So, really dialing into where the spend for the property. And that's the thing, Adrian, you mentioned, like, that's pretty fluid. So what you spend a lot of money on in Q1 could be different in Q2. So finding a partner that's going to be flexible with you, that's going to, modify those top items as they come up.
That's that was great. That was great out there. And I want to encourage all of you to, just kind of use the hand raise option. I guess emoji right there if you wanna intervene. I wanna give the floor now to Will, because we're talking about procurement and then make readies and everything, and then I want to make sure that you kind of weigh in on like the solutions that you're providing to help with that type of experience for the operator. And then once we go to you, then I want to go around the table with the rest of the operators that are in a room to weigh in, or to ask both of you questions, right? Because at the end of the day, if we're not having this conversation on both sides, we're just building here a echo chamber, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Adrian. So I'm with Rent Ready, one of the co-founders here, and we're really more on the services side. So we've built a platform that automates and helps streamline the make-ready process. So painting, cleaning, carpet cleaning, really everything outside of the parts that you need to get units ready to rent. And to what Jared was talking about, we're really built to take the manual error out of scheduling. So we integrate with the property management software. We automate that on notice to vacate. And we're the only solution out there that kind of goes from end to end, from property management software to the vendor and a vendor application. And so vendors are on our platform. They're keeping a make-ready board up to date. And then in addition to that, we have teams that oversee the schedules to make sure that everyone shows up on time, so that maintenance supervisors who are busy in units taking care of residents don't have to be that first set of eyes on it. And so our whole mission is really around shrinking turn times, but then also giving data to procurement divisions that they wouldn't necessarily have. So all of the vendors run through our platform, and you can get quality, reliability, and cost data on all of the vendors that didn't really hit national accounts. So like your local painter, you now have unit by unit, service by service data. And so it's kind of twofold. One is on the scheduling and streamlining and shortening terms. And then the other is really on the data piece of this, where I think a lot of times those site level decisions have been a black box to those who are regional and above. And we're trying to shine a light on a lot of that so you can make better centralized decisions versus on-site decisions.
Thanks, Will. Now, if there's any questions at any given time for Bert or for Will, feel free again to like intervene. I want to give the floor to Jonathan right now. Jonathan, on he sent some really good points for the conversation, so I want you to share them with the group.
Thanks, Adrian. You guys have brought up some good points on the supply side, but Boardwalk came very close to solving a lot of the pain point that I'm going to bring up, whereas the parts are becoming obsolete pretty much as soon as the warranty runs out, especially for appliances. Just before COVID hit, we had gone and started doing Boardwalk branded supply directly from China. We had faucets, we had sinks, we had flooring, all made bespoke just for us. But then the supply chain all went to hell, and now we're back in the same boat as before, where we're struggling to standardize parts across 36,000 units across Canada. But we run into this situation where we can't get the parts that we need to repair them. So why are we even looking at repair anymore? But then we're struggling with this replace policy and our ESG requirements. So like every turnover, we're throwing out half the appliances and fixtures. Then how do we fix that?
I love for someone in a room that has has suggestions. One that comes to mind for me is if you have a place to store, right, appliances that actually break. There are certain parts you can get off of them, is to save the good parts from them to use them for future repairs. That's what I've been doing, in my past life. But I was also fortunate enough that I had enough space to store. I was pretty fortunate to have place to store a lot of the like old or bad appliances, so I could use them for parts. Tim, you're up next, sir. I see your hand up.
Yes, Adrian, I want to piggyback on your comment about the parts. Who do you have that's qualified to replace them?
Fair point.
Because right now, to that point is, yes, we have all of if we have the space, it's fantastic. But do we have the people who are qualified that can get them done? When we're looking at work order history, how many times have we looked at that refrigerator and replaced that compressor? And are we replacing a compressor that's been replaced 3 or 4 different times when we could have solved the problem? And what's our resident retention on those replacements? How many times are we going into that resident unit to complete that work order when potentially just ordering another refrigerator would have resolved the problem faster and then our resident retention is higher?
I was just gonna say, for one, the storage thing helps. But now, like, I have abundance of garages here, and I can go to most of them and just throw any extra appliances. I have one that became a metal shop and a woodworking shop for us. It's nice for that end, but now we're running into an issue of my office is overloading us with things that are just not necessarily pertinent or critical to the function of units and maintenance of things to get to them, to break them down and all that. And it's just really, it gets messy if you don't keep up on it or have the availability or set aside that time to keep up on it. So for that end, definitely. And then as far as like working on them, replacing them, I keep a board that essentially has any of the appliances that we have to go back and work on. And if we have to go back and work on it, if we're getting to 2 or 3 times, that's when I start looking towards a swap. I do a swap, not a replacement, just so I can get it in a make ready unit and I can have that day to look at it Um, I understand it's the whole situation, rob Peter to pay Paul, but that has been, at least for us, it's proven to be more cost efficient to do just because something got messed up in ours and I've kept ordering down so little because of this. It just influxes a lot more work of having to move stuff around and shuffle things. As long as you have the guys that don't mind doing it, it's okay. But if you get those ones that just up, not doing it, won't have it, then you're kind of in a spot.
Oh, we have two constraints. The first being the skill constraint, whereas our best guys will cannibalize appliances on their way out and secretly stash them as like non-tracked stock or do not counts in the various dark, shady corners of their shops, which are systematically being replaced in order to rent them out. So space is always going to be the issue. Training is always going to be the issue. But we're also trying to manage all of our stock. 5S, a lot of companies are getting on board with this whole idea. And man, when we first implemented, the warehouse was absolutely just full of obsolete crap that nobody needed whatsoever. And it's a really, I mean, you let your maintenance guys do it and they become terrible pack rats. Sometimes it pays off, but most of the time, not so much.
Great point out there. We have two hands up. Bert, you're up next, and then Bentley, you're right after Bert.
Yeah,
And then
Jonathan.
Tim is next.
Yeah, Jonathan. One of the things that just come to mind, one is leaning in on partnerships. Like I'm not sure who your partner supplier is. Unfortunately, we're not delivering to Canada yet. But
You should.
yeah, I got to get to California first. But leaning in on those partnerships, and again, also looking at manufacturer support. So if you, and this is where aligning yourself, the supply chain, at least for us, is in a lot better shape than it was even 2 years ago. So product availability doesn't seem to be as big an issue. And then we're sharing any product updates. We've got a great our procurement director shares updates that we make public so that we can see possible headwinds that are coming up from especially things like the tariffs and any slowdown from any product that's flowing in from overseas. But training is the other thing. So time is always an issue when it comes to these maintenance teams. That there's obviously a staffing challenge with qualified technicians. There's a staffing challenge with unqualified technicians. So leaning in on some of the, I'm a big fan of some of the virtual training that's out there through, just to throw a name out there, Interplate Learning. I've seen a lot of the products that they have, and it's very high quality. Just to look at how much they've enhanced their development, even in the last 12 months, they've got top-notch animators that are building these virtual environments, and it's really, really good training. But like Whirlpool, unfortunately, just to throw some names out there, Whirlpool is a great partner when it comes to training. They do a lot of support for their product. Can't say the same for some of the other manufacturers, but so lean in on some partnerships. Don't try to like shoulder the burden of solving that problem yourself. The folks that you're investing your money into for repair supplies, they should absolutely be there to help you out and get creative with solutions. We do pre-buys, so especially if there's an item that there could be some inventory challenges on down the road, we allow our customers to go ahead and buy it ahead of time, and then we'll warehouse it. We'll keep it on hand so it solves that storage problem that you could run into on site.
That's great to know there. Bentley, you're up next, sir.
Perfect. Thanks, Bert, for the beautiful segue. So I think we've talked a lot about, right, how do you manage your team? How do you upskill your team? How do you have the space, right? And all that depends on your portfolio. And it's going to be unique to each business. And I think you're going to have to make those decisions. But the leaning on your partners, right? But not just your supplier partners, but maybe if your concern here, right, is one of them mentioned was ESG, right? It's like, how can we be more sustainable if we're having to throw so much stuff away? And you may have looked into this, right? But just like maybe finding ways to recycle them, finding a salvage yard that can come help pick them up. Maybe they're donatable, and there's a company that might pick them up to repair them and then donate them somewhere out. I don't think you'd get 100% of your need that way, but maybe a piece of it to help kind of reduce that.
That's a fantastic idea, Bentley. You got my brain churning on that one.
No, I never even thought about partnering with like just local people to donate like some of the leftover items that we just don't have the time to.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
good one.
hard to find charities that will take something that doesn't work, right? But sometimes you can. Or maybe it's just a local handyman who's going to take them and refurb them and sell them. Get a little iffy when you're allowing these people on your property and they don't have insurance, right? But
Yeah.
there's some potential, some thoughts out there.
But I mean, what else? What's it going to hurt if they were just going to have to get taken to the dump anyways? Come
also
with your
depends on the
trailer and load it
appliance,
up.
because
Oh
if you
yeah, true. Fridges.
you can't just donate a refrigerator to anybody. They've got to be
EPA
have the
certified.
certifications to deal with the refrigerants. So there's a lot of great things in there, but some of that, depending on the scrapper, can expose you. But again, like everybody's talking about, the partnerships, the relationships, talking about things going out of stock before they go out of stock. Those are the things that with your supplier partnerships and relationships that are paramount in our industry. We just had a flooring partner yesterday advise us of a defective flooring that we've been installing in about 250 units over the last 90 days. So we're going to have to go back in and inspect those units to see the condition, but they were proactive about it. They've already ordered, they know what they've installed. They've already ordered the replacement. And it's just a matter of us going in and scheduling that with the current resident or waiting until the make ready. So the supplier relationships are the key to success in our industry.
What I'd love to see as manufacturers, let's say take dishwashers, for example. And if you had a dishwasher that was rock solid, like 1940s style, gonna last the next 60, and hot swappable front panels, so you can follow the latest trend, but all the guts are just bulletproof. I would love to see something like that.
Good luck with that. They don't make the light bulb. They don't make the light bulb that's gonna last 100 years. I read about 10 years ago was an article on the Blaze, and they said that there was a light bulb that was found in an attic in some building in New York that was still working, and it was 100 years old. Well, imagine if they made light bulbs that 100 years ago that could last 100 plus years. Why can't they make like a light bulb now that lasts 1,000 years, right? That's the question. Instead, it lasts 100 days. So maybe with that type of program obsolescence, maybe Bert, maybe you want to wait on that because like now I'm just thinking, yeah, there's a lot of like hunt over price, getting the best price, getting the lowest price, but don't you ultimately get what you pay for? So I'd like for you to speak on the quality of the product and like where does it make sense to go for the lowest price product versus a little bit of a better quality that might get you twice the life of the cheapest product or something like that. How do we make those choices?
Adrian, that's a really challenging position. One, like I represent a lot of commodity business, right? I represent products that are relatively the same across all the suppliers that are out there in the marketplace, and that's for good reason, right? That our customers are driving like what we keep in our inventory. They're creating the demand that we go and procure and put in our inventory. Now, when it comes to things like some of the proprietary products that we have manufactured, we can apply some additional quality in there. But it's really tough to sell on quality, especially when you're talking turnover at the community level, you're talking turnover at the management company level, with acquisitions and changeover. You take something like a nationally branded faucet that has a lifetime warranty on it or a 10-year warranty. really at the user level, it's hard to quantify the value of tenure or lifetime. Like one, it's the tracking of the product to know that that's actually what's in the resident's apartment at the time. Like asset tracking is one of the things that almost everyone out there wants to do, but it's such a cumbersome task and chore of like getting into every apartment to really document all the things that are in that apartment. So ultimately it comes down to, we're selling the same products and there's only a couple different points of value that you can use to assess like who you want to partner with for your supplies. And price is absolutely one of them. But the other one is product availability. So can I get it on time? It's and the thing that I always really push hard on is we're talking about, a majority of the costs happen at unit turnover, and a day vacancy average across the US is somewhere between $55-$60 a day today. So when our customers are out there fighting for that lowest price,
that would be one of them, Mike,
and,
Mike or Keith or Donald. We'll have the key to that.
and then ignoring like when that product is coming in, or just allowing their supplier partner to be a little bit lazy and delivering things that are supposed to be there next day, that's an expensive item. That's what happens when a quick set deadbolt goes from $18 deadbolt to a $65-$70 deadbolt because it costs you that day of vacancy. So really that's a leverage point that I really push hard on. I really challenge our procurement teams to pay attention to the data, pay attention to what our customers are using, what they're requesting. Look at trends, but don't look too hard into the trends. The oil rub bronze trend lasted about 17 minutes. So it wasn't something you really want to put a heavy investment into, but again, shared communication. So being like dialing into the customers to find out what are those critical items, what are the top things that are really moving the needle, and make sure that it's in stock and available, so that we take those emergency situations and make them planned repairs instead of emergency repairs.
Thanks, Bert. Scott Peters, you're up next, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon. So to Adrian's point, the 100-year light bulb, I think manufacturers have figured out that if they make a 100-year light bulb, they go out of business pretty quick. So they make things, I think, to break these days than they do to last. So that's a fun point there. But as far as parts and things go, we have national accounts with 3 major suppliers, and those national accounts then have a deduction, a percentage that we get off across the board. So we're not worrying about which products we buy. Everything is at the same reduced amount. Then you have to decide what's important. Are you concerned with what toilet seat goes into each apartment? If you're going to get that granular, you're going to have a difficult time trying to keep everything consistent across the board, especially with larger portfolios. You got to find the value. Where's the value? We find value in, say, faucets, right? That's one of our big ones. So we've done a sub national account with Moen CFG. So everything that we purchase, say through HD Supply or through Lowe's, Ferguson, we have a sub national agreement with Moen. Yes, there's some more cost to that, but Moen is a proven brand. They're going to be around forever. They're not going to go away. There's going to be some product changes for sure. But is a resident going to notice, this faucet in this apartment if they go visit their neighbor's apartment and see a slightly different faucet? Probably not. But on the Moen, we get a 10-year warranty. They supply us with parts for all of the Moen stuff that we utilize in our apartments. So that all the replacement parts are covered for free. If we run out of parts, we call them. They come and stock us up on parts. If we have a faucet that goes bad, we swap it out, bring it to the shop. They come out and replace it at no charge. Faucets are huge in our industry. That's a large cost ticket. If you put in a bad faucet or a low quality faucet, it might look good for the first month or two, but guaranteed you're going to be, replacing that. And then that puts more work, on the staff on site to fix and or be replacing those faucets. So there's an availability of what I would call, sub accounts, sub national accounts that you can have, in addition to your accounts with like a Chadwell or HD Supply. So I'd suggest you look out for those, because those will add impact to your bottom line over time. Today, if you buy a CFG or, and I'm gonna get on HD a little bit here with their Seasons brand, but if you buy a CFG or a Seasons, I guarantee that Seasons is going to be replaced in the next year, in comparison to a CFG that you're going to put in for slightly more. That's going to last you at least 10 years. So there's sub accounts out there that you can sign up for and do national accounts across the board. And then we get a rebate from Moen for everything that we purchase from our suppliers, and it's through the supplier, right? They track it for us. They let us know at the end of the year how much we spent on Moen products, and then it's sent to Moen, and then Moen then gives us a rebate for the properties that spent dollars with them.
That's a very interesting program out there, Scott. So thank you for sharing. It's incredibly valuable, and also does not really like compete with with your MRO programs. It's actually a plug into the existing program. So that's great to know. Great info.
And I don't know if Chadwell does, but our other suppliers, like if we do have certain items on a property that we only want purchased, like you probably have properties out there that did green loans, and you'll get inspected, and sometimes you won't pass those inspections because people have replaced different aerators or different shower heads. So within the large suppliers, typically I can go into one property, for example, and just limit them in what they can purchase. I can say you can only purchase this shower head, this aerator, this faucet. Now we don't get that granular if we don't need to, but on certain ones where maybe we have a green loan, we've gone in and done that, so that no matter what maintenance supervisor is there or somebody comes to fill in or you get staff turnover, they cannot go on to our suppliers and buy, a 30-gallon per minute shower head when it's supposed to have a 1.5,
Let's find out from Bert, since you mentioned a couple of things, and also I could see his hand up.
Yeah, so those are great points. And the other thing about those manufacturer rebate programs, those kind of loyalty programs, and there's quite a few that are available. Daikin does one with Goodman. You can get them through. So I think I'm pretty sure Kwikset has it, Whirlpool has it, and the beauty of it, to your point, is they're available across. They're supplier agnostic, so that's coming directly from the manufacturer. So whether you buy it from HD Supply or Lowe's or Ferguson or Chadwell Supply, you're going to get credit for those purchases, and still get the benefit of that rebate. The other thing on faucets that I'll point out, and this was so when I was a regional property, that was the big push that I made, was standardizing my faucets. And same thing, I went to my national account rep, and I was sick and tired of looking at faucet replacements happening within 1 to 2 years. And I said, bring me a faucet that'll last 5 years, no questions. And I was quickly introduced to my Moen rep. We're great friends, now 1,000 years later. And it's exactly right. It's something I can depend on. My teams can depend on. And more than anything, the minute you introduce a second, once you have a community standardized, as soon as a second faucet is introduced into that community, you've almost tripled the time requirement of those maintenance requests, because you now have to go find out what the faucet is, then go back and get the parts for that faucet, or you're grabbing 2 or 3 different cartridges to take, and then the 2 cartridges you didn't use never make it back on the shelf. So you got a lot of product loss there when it comes to some of the repair supplies. So from a time saving standpoint, product standardization, and just ease of repair, that faucet standardization is huge. The one thing I will point out on the products, limiting the products in a catalog, especially with new team members, new associates that come on, sometimes you have to battle with, because we've done a lot of that, And then if you've got multiple suppliers, what they do is they'll go look for the part that they want to use. They'll think that the supplier they looked it up with doesn't have it. Then they just go to a different supplier who didn't have that product standardization in place with you and place the order. So I like to use like frequently purchased items or shopping list, and it can be like a compliant shopping list for like water saving devices, something like that. So they at least know to go there to find the items. Just a little tip, just to make sure that you don't have the, I'm Captain Workaround. So if I can't find the thing I'm looking for somewhere, I keep, instead of thinking there's a reason why I'm not finding it, I just do the workaround or hop in my truck and go to a big box store and pick it up off the shelf. So those shopping lists are coming real handy to help streamline a lot of that.
That kind of loops right back around to my primary issue with that classic wisdom of standardizing parts is that, I mean, we bring up Moen as an example, and it seems to be a nearly singular example of a product with a decent reputation in regards of reliability and the ability to get replacement parts and so on. We don't really have that when it comes to other fixtures. So I guess going very wide in terms of how do we fix that problem. And I can't help but wonder if there is a behavioral driver that can happen on the supplier side with some sort of reliability meter on products. That seems counterintuitive because you'd be wanting to sell whatever products will sell. But we do not have enough products available that have any kind of reliability. How does that change?
So, back to standardization, and I've kind of found to a point where plumbing is one of the only areas, plumbing and door hardware are really the only areas that I could consistently look at to say standardization makes a lot of sense here. Lighting, the problem you have with lighting is trends change so often. Manufacturers are it's an 8-inch disc LED light, and then next year it's going to have a different trim ring on it that's a little bit, it's a fundamental change, and at the end of the day, is that something that's going to like harm your ability to lease that apartment? So it's and the planned obsolescence thing is just it's forever here. No manufacturer gets into business to supply one of their things to everybody and then go out of business. So you bring up Jonathan, you bring up a really challenging issue. And then when it comes to like all the big equipment, appliances and HVAC equipment, it's not even bring up A2L and just the ridiculous nature of refrigerant changes and what that causes, especially from a costing standpoint to all of you. But all the manufacturing adjustments that come in, that's why you're finding model numbers change 2 or 3 times a year now, where they used to change once every couple of years. So it's a real challenge.
We have a couple of folks we didn't get to. Craig has his hand up, and then Vinny, we haven't heard from you today. So be on standby because we have Craig, then we have Jared, and get ready. Then we're gonna get to you next. Okay, already, Craig.
Hey, thanks. I think to me, and I'll be the bad guy in this whole thing. Standardization is fine at a corporate level if that's what you're going to do. I agree completely with the whole, when you come to plumbing fixtures, buying what you can buy parts to replace for. But the point of standardization and trying to use it as cost savings comes back to accountability. And it makes the corporate people the bad guy to say, and I've worked for several companies and some of them rather large, that incentivize people to do what we ask you to do. So if I want you to buy something and you buy it, then I give you something for doing what I ask you to do. And if you don't, or you can flip flop. If you don't, I take something away from you. but holding people accountable to what your expectation is, to me, is something that we're moving away from, which allows that person to jump in the truck and run to the box store and buy whatever it is that they want to do and waste an hour's worth of time, instead of having simply bought what you wanted them to buy in the first place. And if there's an ouchie, as my grandson would say, to be had, then they'll avoid that eventually, as they realize what that is, and whatever incentive you put in there or put behind that, just is what's the value of it to you. If the value is, we're going to only ever buy the cheapest faucet we can find, we know we're going to replace it every time we turn an apartment, then you hold them accountable to buying only the cheapest faucet that's there that you've approved of. Or if you're not going to buy faucets because you're only going to buy faucets you can replace parts for, then you hold them accountable to that, through looking through and evaluating what you're buying and where you're buying it from, making them answer to that. But you've got to put that responsibility in the hands, and you've got to make your supervisors capable of being accountable.
I know, Jared, you wanted to intervene, so please.
Yeah, and I apologize if anyone wants to drop it in the chat how you're supposed to raise your hand in Zoom. I think Craig has a great point. I think a lot of your standardization relies heavily on keeping people accountable with that and giving them the why behind it. The why is needed and needed to be understood by our operators for them to really buy into it. And without that buy-in, it's a really hard push. But one thing I wanted to mention about standardizing products, we look at a certain category of products that we want to standardize, and we want to create flexibility with other categories because we find that certain categories are much more beneficial. We've been talking about the longevity of certain products. So we look at those things: thermostats, faucets, light fixtures, things of that nature. But what I'm trying to do is implement a new tactic where if we take on a new property, I'm partnering with my local RSM for my MRO provider to go out and walk that property with me and see what's in place for those things that we know are going to be items that we will need to replace at some point. And then they're going to provide me with, here's the cost for a direct match of that. And then you also provide me with a better option, maybe a product that has better longevity, maybe better look or upgraded feel to it or whatever it might be. And then that list of products gets provided to my onsite team so that when they go to make those purchases, all of that's already built out. They don't need to jump online and try to find the part number for their sink or their light fixture or whatever it might be. And so we're trying to create a streamlined process for ordering, but we're also trying to create standardization through more of an organic, non-imposed or non-threatening kind of approach to say, here's what you already have, go ahead and replace with that, or here's maybe the product that you should look at or consider that could be a better option. So I just wanted to throw that idea out there and see if anyone's doing anything similarly.
Yeah, I think you left us with some great points, right? Great tips out there. Vinny, you're up next, sir. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you. There's so much to unpack. So, first and foremost, for me, being in different niches in the industry, procurement, it means it doesn't mean different things, but there's a different approach depending on what your niche is. So going from like a value add or to like a long-term hold, that's going to change things a lot. When you go into value add, which is where I came from, now I'm in longer term hold. it's a distinct difference because most value add properties, when you're buying, say, a C or a D rated property, you're going in there. There were multiple people in there doing renovations at different stages for different ownerships. Trying to make it all the same is virtually impossible unless you go through from one end and sweep through to the other. And you know that it's a task that takes way beyond the 3 to 5 year hold if you're really going to really do it. So, I mean, it's a difficult thing because when you want to like order in bulk, right? We've tried everything. We tried everything when I was there, and it's always something that pops up that makes it so much more difficult. So then you order it in like a trailer load, and it comes in these packs. And Chadwell was one of them that we used, Chad packs. So it works to an extent. When we did not want the Chad pack released until everything was in that box per se. They would ship the box, we would get it. It'd be missing a light, missing a faucet. Now I'm taking time to send people there to check through everything. And I know I'm not saying anything except it didn't happen just with Chadwell. So it's not that. And it's not the way Chadwell has been great, but HD does the same thing. Lowe's does the same thing. And then you're stuck trying to fill in, and you got people moving in. So what we're going to do is take it from another one. Then we wind up missing 3 pieces in the next apartment. We got to wait for that to come. It's just been a total complete disaster from what I've seen. Now, go from there, push it further to longer term holds. You know, we come in with, okay, these are technically kind of newer properties. They've been very well maintained, depending on the management company that's there and the different supervisors and different, you know, different owners or whatever it is. They have a different vision. And some of them, they're in it for the investors or themselves or whatever it is, or the board. They have to make money for their investors, right? So then they're going to want to go again. Well, do you want to go cheaper and have something that's going to last 1 to 2 to 3 years? Or do you want to get the better product, spend the money on it now, and this way it's going to be a better product. It's going to last longer and it's going to give you more value, right? I know that whole thing goes back and forth as well. But, and then to bring up the 100-year light bulb thing, yeah, I've said this several times too. It definitely is possible, but there's no manufacturer that's going to do that. I think honestly, the other part of the problem is that when we come in as whether you are a new owner, a third-party manager asked to do renovations, especially in the value add community, when you're told to come in and make us fit with this much money, this is what we have per unit to do renovations, you're going to tend to go to the cheaper side to try and stay under budget. And then if you incur any costs in the future as to prices going up or whatever it is, tariffs and all the stuff that we're experiencing now, you have that kind of built in there, right? So that's a little bit of a different conversation. There's so much we can go here, but I'm at the end, so I'm just trying to get through it. And that changes a lot of things too. It changes your approach. It depends on where your ownership wants to be or where the management company wants to be as far as turning a profit or what they're leaving for the next guy, which is, a statement in the industry that's well known, especially in the value add community. We're gonna renovate 60% of this property over the next 3 to 5 years and then dump it and leave something for the next guy. And it's perfectly understandable. It's acceptable. Everybody does it. But when you're getting the cheapest product, say, I'm just going to throw a name out there, Frigidaire, and then you're buying the lowest quality of Frigidaire, and then you're putting it in there and expecting it to last 6 years, and it breaks down a year in as soon as the warranty runs out. I almost think it's by design because they know the people that are buying the bulk of this stuff are going to be in a multifamily business where they're buying several hundreds or several thousands of this product. Why not give them something that's going to break, give their, and then they're going to have to either replace a new one or get parts that cost just as much as getting a new one. At some point, you have to make that decision then. So, yeah, I mean, procurement's very, very, very difficult to find something that's consistent. It's very difficult to make it go across all the ranges of our industry because there are so many different ranges of it.
Thanks, Vinny. I would like to wrap up with some opportunities right there from a technology and labor perspective. And since we have Will here, I know Will said a few words at the beginning. Will, what are some opportunities for property management to integrate with like services like yours, which is not a typical thing for our industry to do, right? Most companies, probably over 90%, don't do anything like that. What are some opportunities to integrate with a provider of technology and labor at the same time to integrate with their like procurement platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of opportunity, one on kind of the make-ready days. So if you can get a system that's streamlined and organizes the make-ready, that's a big piece of it. But then also think that procurement on site is kind of a black box when it comes to individual service providers like painters, cleaners, carpet cleaners. And so we're able to provide a lot of kind of site level data. And so in a lot of ways where you're trying to standardize, set pricing on the parts side of things, I haven't seen a lot of folks be able to do that on the individual services like paint, clean, and carpet outside of a platform like RentReady. So yeah, like I think this is a great conversation around parts. I think on parts gets a lot of the airtime in terms of procurement, but we're trying to bring similar data and similar integration that you would be able to around kind of standardizing and setting up a program nationally where I don't think that's really been there before. I think most of these services are procured site by site, market by market. And then we're trying to be able to enable folks to set up national programs around these types of services and deliver more consistency around the services side as well. So
Thanks, Will. We have T. Rodriguez. Your hand is up and you haven't been speaking today, so please, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Will, I had a question for you about the platform that you're using.
yeah.
Is that like a money.com board, or what are you guys using?
We've built it totally from scratch. And so the whole thing is proprietary. And so we'll integrate into property management software like a RealPage, Entrata, or Yardi. And then the vendor application and the client application are both things that we've built proprietary.
Okay. I know currently we're using money.com to be able to communicate with our vendors and all that, and they're able to, get their jobs and their work done and upload the pictures and the notes and stuff like that. And then that's transferred into RealPage at this point.
Got it. Yeah, it sounds similar in terms of functionality.
Bart, would you like to answer the question and just kind of like give some context? There were some back and forth messages and great observations in a chat box.
Yeah, Jonathan had asked the question about why other manufacturers aren't following suit with the programs like Moen has, and they are. Pfister, for one, has been very aggressive in the marketplace and trying to grow, similar programs with owner operators, just because they recognize that the market share that Moen was dominating, across the country. The win is like ultimately the win comes in for the manufacturer because almost no one's tracking, installation of these fixtures, like the installation dates and tracking warranties. So, items are constantly repair parts and other fixtures are constantly being purchased when they could just be putting in a warranty claim and getting them replaced. I've got a very large partner of ours, over 100,000 units, and I audited their purchase history when we initiated that partnership, and they had spent over $100,000 in hot and cold cartridges with Moen, and these were obviously well within warranty, and so when you talk about savings, that's an automatic savings that it just comes down to communication and folks on site understanding that they have that program and availability. I can't tell you how many shops I walk into and you point to the tackle box that's on the top shelf in the back corner of the shop, and what is that? And the guys that have been there have no idea that that's actually where their repair supplies are for their fixtures.
That's an incredible take out there, and I think it's a very positive way for us to wrap up because we're over the top of the hour. I just want to thank you all. This was by far the most engaging meeting that we had. Want to keep the conversation going. In closing, I want you to send me emails about future topics that you would like to see highlighted on our conversations. At the end of the day, we just want to make this as useful and as engaging as possible here and of value for us all, right? Thank you all for being here today. See you in 2 weeks. I think we're gonna be back on our regular, Wednesday schedule, unless there's a conflict on my end. Have a great rest of the day, and have a great week and a happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.
Everybody.